Hey there, this is R A Manard Mitrava for Monks of the Way, and I gave a talk, part one and part two, Is There a Self? And talked about the different sutta where Buddha mentions that it's not a productive line of conversation or debate, rather, and that citing either way, there is or isn't a self in a debate is harmful. And so he doesn't do it. He doesn't say other people should do it. And Bahiya Sutta is one of those that I came through and mentioned, but then afterwards, uh, I had read it as if everybody was just going to understand what it meant when I said it, and they didn't. Uh, a person asked, "What does this mean?" and they cited part of it, and it blew my mind. I felt bad for them that they couldn't understand this. It hadn't entered my mind that someone might not understand it. To me, it was very elementary. To them, it was a mystery. And then other people were answering, saying what they thought it meant, and almost none of them got it right at all. And once again, I was just blown away. I couldn't figure this out. So, I've gone through it again, trying to put myself in the mind of a person that doesn't understand, and I have a better understanding of why they don't understand it, but it's difficult for me to grasp. But we're going to go there. So, Bahiya Sutta, right? About Bahiya is what it is. And let's go through it right now. It goes, this I've heard. One time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeddah wood at a particular monastery. And at that time, Bahiya the bark cloth was living by the seashore. And he was respected, revered, honored, venerated, and given homage, and was one who obtained the requisites of robes, alms, foods, lodging, and medicines, like a monk. Now, while he was in seclusion, this reflection arose in the mind of Bahiya the bark cloth. Am I one of those in the world who are ready for, well, an enlightened one or not, ready to leave the world behind? One who's entered the path to do so. He doesn't know. He's doubting. It's a question in his mind there. Then Devata, who was a former blood relation of Bahiya the bark cloth, understood that reflection in his mind. Being compassionate and wishing to benefit him, he approached him and he said, "You're neither enlightened nor have you entered the path to enlightenment. You do not follow the practice whereby you could be one of those people." Then in the world, including the devas, who are those people that have entered the path? And he says, there's in a far country a town called Savatthi, and the Lord there lives who is one of those, the fully enlightened one, not just enlightened, fully enlightened. Um, and that Lord Bahiya is indeed an errant, and he teaches, well, an enlightened one, and he teaches the teaching of truth for the realization of that. Then, by the bark cloth, profoundly stirred by the words, he took off and he went. And he stopped only for one night everywhere along the way. And he went there to where Buddha was staying. And there was a number of the monks walking up and down. And he approached them and he asked for directions. And they said he had gone out to accept offerings. among the houses. And he hurried out there and he saw him walking around, and he was pleasing, lovely to say, calm senses, tranquil mind, um, attained to perfect poise and calm, controlled, a perfected one, watchful with restrained senses. On seeing the Lord, he approached, fell down with his head at the Lord's feet, and said, uh, "Teach me the teaching, so that it'll be good for my happiness for a long time." Well, going forward would probably be a better translation, but he said it's not the right time. He's collecting donations. Well, a second time he does this, and he's like, you know, teach me so that it'll be for my good and happiness for going forward. And he's like, it's collecting donations here. Third time he does this, so he takes a look at him there. He says, "All right." He goes, "You should train yourself this way." He says, "In the seen will be merely what is seen, and the heard will be merely what is heard. In the sensed will be merely what is sensed, in the thought of will be merely what is thought. In this way you should train yourself. Uh, when Bahiya for you, in the seen is merely what is seen, the thought is merely what is thought, then Bahiya you will not be with that. When Bahiya you are not with that, you will not be in that. When Bahiya you are not in that, then you will be neither here nor beyond nor between the two. Just this is the end of suffering then." Now, through this brief teaching, he was immediately freed uh, from the depths of grasping, and having instructed him in this brief way, he went away. He kept going. So not long after the Lord's departure, a cow with a calf attacked the Bahiya and killed him. Rough way to go, huh? Killed by a cow. And he had died. So Buddha said that to take his body, put it on a stretcher, carry it away, burn it, and make a stupa for it, one of those monuments, which is interesting, of course. He says, "Your companion in the holy life has died." So they say, okay, and they go out and they do this, That's what they do. And they're wondering about this, though, because, well, like I said, Baha'i wasn't a monk, but he lived like a monk. So they're wondering what his future is. What future birth could such a person have? Well, he tells them that he was wise, that he practiced according to the teaching, the truth. Didn't trouble him disputing him about the truth of the teaching, and he had attained that 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 enlightenment. And he gave a little stanza. He liked to say a certain stanza. It says, where neither water, yet earth, nor fire, nor air gain a foothold, there shine no stars, no sun sheds light. There shines no moon, yet no darkness reigns. When a sage, a Brahmin, has come to know this for himself through his own wisdom, then he is freed from form and formless, freed from pleasure and from pain. And that's what he said. And that's the end of it. Okay, so we went through the whole thing. First, I want to note that Buddha doesn't go, oh, you want to hear a sermon? Well, I'm just going to stop doing what I'm doing and give this sermon to you. He wants to keep going about what he's doing. He's not going to just, just do that. But the guy is persistent. It's a big deal. Well, since it's such a big deal, he does it. When he does it, he cuts to the quick of it. I mean, seeing this respectful person being able to pretty much see him, well, to perceive him in a very truthful way, he pretty much knows what he needs, and he delivers that. And he delivers it in such a straightforward way. The guy understands it, and boom, it just clicks. But the question the person had when that I mentioned before was they didn't get what it meant when he said, what is seen, what is what is seen, what is thought is what is thought. He didn't get what that means, and he says, what does it mean? And people had a wide range of things they thought it meant, and they were pretty sure that's what it meant. And to illustrate this point, I want to mention a form of trickery. Now, this is trickery. I tell you right off that it's trickery, but let's go through it. So you are somewhere, let's say you're walking down the street going somewhere, and there's a guy standing there like he's waiting for something, or he's walking down the street, either way. And as you walk, you see an envelope and you pick it up, and it has money in it. It has a whole bunch of money in it. Well, this other guy that was there saw it at the same time, but you picked it up first. And he's like, wow, money. He's like, that's great. He's like, I found it at the same time you did. Why don't you split it with me? And he's like, well, this is normally done as that person um, is a trickster. And they go, okay, well, you're on your way somewhere. Well, this person will probably claim it then, you're probably going to say, or, it's not mine. What if somebody comes back for it? And this person's like, well, that's true. And he goes, but I got to go somewhere. And, you're probably just going to keep all the money then, and I won't get any of it. Um, he goes, let me count it. And so the guy counts it, and he folds up the envelope and he puts it in his pocket. He's like, let's wait for a while. So you wait, and you don't see anything. And he says, well, I do have to go. He says, you can keep the money, but give me something as a token of good faith, so I'll know that you're not going to just run away from the money. How your watch, or your passport, or some item that you have. And he says, "We'll trade at the same time." And he says, "Okay." And he takes the envelope out of his pocket. He trades you, and he walks away. So he's agreed to come back after a certain amount of time, not too long. And you're sitting there, and guess what? That's it. You've been had. You didn't know that he already had an envelope folded the same way in his pocket, and there's no money in it. It's coupons or slips of paper in there. So you've given him your watch, and he gave you an envelope with strips of paper in it. He's not coming back. Okay, you've been had. So you have this confidence. It's a confidence scam. And there's many different ways it can go. But the idea is that you think you're giving up a little and getting a lot, even if the guy doesn't come back with the watch. And that's not the case. Another one would be where a lady says she uh, lost her watch at a store, and the cashier says they don't see it. And the lady says, "If you find it, I'll give you this large amount of money because it's this expensive engagement ring." And so another guy comes in later, and he says, "I just found this." And he says, "There must be a reward for such a nice ring." And he says, why don't you give me money, a certain amount of money? I'll give you the ring. You'll get the whole reward, and I'll just get this small amount, much smaller than the big amount of this that you've been told it's worth. And they expect you to do that. And of course, the lady's not coming back for the ring because it's a piece of costume jewelry. It's pretty much worthless. So you've been tricked. Confidence. Let's go to another example of being tricked. A magic show. You're at a magic show. You know the guy probably didn't really pull a rabbit out of a hat. That the rabbit was probably not in the hat. It's a trick. It's a trick. You don't even know how it's done necessarily, but you know the rabbit might not have been in the hat. You know that what you're seeing is not necessarily the way it is. And a smart person can be skeptical of other people and not fall for the confidence scam and not fall for the magic show. But it takes somebody who's disciplined, who's measured, uh, who is more skilled than that, to look at their own delusions and then go ahead and be skeptical. You're the magician, unbeknownst to yourself, much of the time. Not the way you see it most of the time, but it's true. You're the magician. You're also the audience. And many times you pull off your own confidence scam on you. You don't know it. You think you know what you saw. You formed judgments and thoughts about things, maybe completely delusional. And we've all had things we thought we completely understood how it worked, and then something happened, and guess what? We found out we did not. We did not have an idea. We didn't have a clue. But if you're skeptical, you weren't sure you were right anyway, really. You believed you were right, but you knew that was your belief. And if somebody had information that conflicted with it, well, you'd want to know about it. You'd want to go down that road and see if there's some fact-based discernment that goes behind it that can convince you that the magician really did pull the rabbit out of the hat. So what we're talking about is not getting caught up in your perceptions of things, the way you think about things, to keep an open mind in the now. And if you're not caught up in those thoughts and those perceptions, you won't be caught up in them and engrossed in them, uh, tied down in them. And this is what Buddha's talking about. It's when you debate things, like I said, this was something that was brought up in the is there a self or not? Um, some things are not, they're not wise, they're not productive, they're not good for people to have this fact-based discussion about, because no one really has anything to stand on that they can put forward and go, here, test this. You'll get proof, and then you can practice it. So I urge everybody to realize that they are the magician in the audience, and that they don't even know they're pulling off these tricks. The human mind wants to decide it knows things. It wants a solid footing of reality. It doesn't matter if it's really reality. It's the perception of reality that it wants. So it's going to cut corners. It's going to make connections. It's going to, put the whole thing together for you, whether or not it's based in what's real or not. And I'm not saying you can't believe anything that's not fact-based. Once again, you're human. You should probably be doing that too. But is it wise? Is it productive? Is it good for everybody? This goes to the heart of religion too. If somebody's practicing religion and it's not those things, then they're doing it wrong. That's all I can say. Well, how is it wrong? I'm pretty sure that's self-explanatory. Maybe someone won't understand it. They'll ask me. I don't know going forward, but there it is. So there's other sutta I could put, but I don't want to make a really long video about this. And I'm sure I'm going to revisit this again and again. How about that Bahiya, huh? Killed by a cow? That's a rough way for a really old guy to go. Rough way, rough. Too bad. But that's life. Walking across a field, killed by a cow in your elderly years. So, once again, I want to mention that I'm thankful that you're having a listen. I'm grateful to be able to share with you. If a friend has something and it's good, he probably wants to share it with you. That's where I'm coming from. I hope that truth will remove delusion in your life the way light removes darkness. Once again, thanks for having a listen.